a day about what can we do about our utility bills. This is unsustainable, and it truly is unsustainable for a company to make $5 billion in profit, but people's bills are still skyrocketing. But cost of living, access to food, about a third of the folks that I represent in my district are either on SNAP benefits or have accessed food assistance over the past year through one of the many incredible organizations we have in Charlotte that do food serving work, like Nourish Up or the Bulb Gallery, or in a ton of other ones. And then housing. Everybody is concerned about housing, whether it is that young person that's looking to get into an apartment that doesn't cost $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 a month, or that young family that wants to buy a home but can't find starter home prices, or those folks who have owned their home for years and are worried about their property value getting higher, and thus their property tax bill when it comes looking higher each year. Everybody's concerned about housing. And so I'd say those are the three biggest issues that I hear about and that I'm trying my best to work on in Raleigh.
I love it. Those are big ones. I mentioned the summit we had on Tuesday, bipartisan, obviously, your colleagues there, and it's really interesting. We could get into that minute, some of the characters amongst them, but they both said, both sides, all districts, all demographics, number one right now is affordability of life.
Yep.
And as I see cannabis being probably the most important fight of my life currently, my fight is all of it, but currently it's cannabis, and it puts things in perspective when I'm fighting for this and fighting for my life, and realizing we're talking about something that's going to happen in November, where a lot of people are wondering, how am I going to pay my bills today? Yeah. How am I going to make rent this month? How am I going to put food on my table tonight? And where cannabis pales in comparison for such crisis, I think it plays in directly to the same things. Ultimately, we're facing budget crisis year after year, if we could actually get one in North Carolina. Right. We've been fighting to actually have a budget. We could touch on that too. But something that would help greatly in this budget is not kill, $2.87 billion industry in this state and 10,000 jobs in this industry. And that's a very conservative estimate that we just did through a poll. I forget the poll company. It was one of the big ones. Mm-hmm. But that's 10,000 more jobs that we wouldn't have. We've also proposed an additional 6% tax on top of what we're paying to help fund the housing crisis, to help fund the mental health crisis we have, the housing crisis, the food deserts, the food, lack of supply for so many in need. And we're just now becoming an industry where we can help fund those things. And not only are we potentially going to lose that, we're going to kill and cut any additional things we can add to that, and an additional tax. You came out the gate swinging. You came out and wanted a rec bill and asked for 30%, and that's where I was like, we got to talk about 30%. That's a tall ask, but the sentiment is the same. We can pay our fair share of taxes. The war on drugs has done a huge disparage to so many families. Unfortunately, more so the minority families, and we can talk about that as well. But let's talk about first in your bill proposal and where you see North Carolina needing to be and why you put forth that bill.
Yeah. So House Bill 413, the Marijuana Legalization and Reinvestment Act, would have fully legalized recreational marijuana, as you noted, and it did come with a steep sales tax attached to it. It was 30. It might have even been 33%. I have heard a lot about that part specifically.
Hey, you got everybody's attention. And
being
nothing else.
A bit of a chest clincher, and have come around to, like, I plan on reintroducing this bill until we get it done, as long as I'm in the legislature, and we'll likely rethink what that tax structure looks like around marijuana revenue. Senator Greg Meyer, unfortunately leaving the legislature, he'll be joining the North Carolina Justice Center, I believe it is, in the next couple of months here. But he introduced a bill on the Senate side to do something very similar, and his bill had a potency tax. And when the two of us kind of talked about it, this is after we both filed our individual bills, he had some really good points, hearing from other folks about the the negative consequences, or the cons, really, and unintended consequences of having such a high sales tax associated with it, keeping people in the black market, for example, in the state, then losing out on revenue. Yep. Certainly come around to it. And that's kind of what the legislative process is about, right? You put your ideas out there, you let people kind of tear them apart to an extent, you let people support what they support, you come around to different changes, and you work things out to really get to a good bill. The revenue, take a step back. The reason why I introduced this bill is not simply because Jordan wants to see, marijuana get legalized in North Carolina.
Right.
It's not the singular reason. I heard about that from people across the district when I was running for office, and as I even traveled the state in this first year in office, and even at the building. And as you mentioned, colleagues on both sides of the aisle will support it, or are supportive of it, even if they're not publicly supportive. People agree. This is something folks are asking for. We're in the now, I think, minority of states that have yet to legalize marijuana in one form or fashion, and whether it be medicinal or recreational. And so people are like, North Carolina should catch up. But the probably primary reason that I introduced it is revenue. It's from a governance perspective of our state, because of tax cuts that the legislature has imposed at both our personal income tax level and for corporate income taxes that are getting phased all the way down to zero by the year 2030. We're losing money. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country. The thought process was, hey, we can cut our personal income tax rate in half, but our tax base is growing so wide, it'll keep up. And that has not panned out, unfortunately. And nonpartisan fiscal staff on the legislature, or within the legislature, and from the governor's Office of State Budget and Management have come back and agreed that that's not panning out, and that by the year, I believe, fiscal year 2027, 2028, we will be in a deficit. And so this bill at its heart was not only to address what folks are saying they want out of their state to legalize marijuana, but also to address real financial gaps that we are going to have to deal with in the next few years.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note as well, some of this fiscal budget is put towards fighting these very things we're looking to legalize. So not only are we producing income from the sale of these products, we're saving money on the enforcement, ultimately, of the products. And, you can feel any kind of way you want to feel about cannabis, but ultimately our court systems are clogged up now. Yes, they're backlog cases years out, testing for these products years out. So much time, resources, money just wasted on enforcing the being illegal, cannabis being illegal. And the biggest fight I hear from law enforcement is they lose their ability for probable cause to be able to search vehicles. But they actually lost that already in a court hearing where they already ruled that the smell of cannabis cannot be used as probable cause. So we have that precedent set. I think it's important, though, to realize not only will it generate income, it'll be a savings as well, where we can help fund some of the shortfalls in our state and things like that. Let's get on into it too. Let's talk about the process. You just wake up one day and said, I'm running for office. Is that how that works?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I have been interested in, so my bachelor's degree is in political science. Oftentimes joke and say, if I could do it all over again, I might do something like comms or something else. But
right.
Did political science. My first job out of college was working at the state legislature. I was an assistant to a state senator before jumping over to Senator Mujtaba Muhammad. Okay. He's another Mecklenburg County senator. I then jumped over to a program in Governor Cooper's administration named Hometown Strong. I got to do a lot of work with rural communities around the southwestern part of the state, but that work took me across the state, particularly to rural parts of North Carolina, and got to experience and learn about some really beautiful towns with rich histories that are either working to preserve those histories or really working to turn the page and enter its next chapter as that town or that county, and got to see a lot of cool things along the way. Went to grad school, got the MPA, and again, I guess the first two roles that I had after school, you could tell, okay, this guy wants to work in government. I wanted to be and still am, want to be a public administrator. Ultimately, I often tell people my goals in life were to become a city manager, county manager, a town manager, because those are the folks who really do the work of government. They city councils or state representatives, for that matter, we pass the laws, we set the policy, if you will, but it's the city managers and their teams that actually carry out the work of government. And that stuff has always been so interesting to me, because that's where the rubber meets the road. It's where people feel like their government is working for them, or in some cases not working for them. And I wanted to be a part of helping, whether it be here in Charlotte or wherever I could get a job as a manager at, but helping those folks see their government work.
Right.
Now, along the way, politics happened. And oftentimes joking, or not even really joke, I just say no. Running for state house in 2024 at the age of 26 was not on my bingo card. It was not in the plans. But in 2024, the legislature redrew our state legislative maps in both the Senate and the House. In the East Charlotte area, there were some changes made to benefit a certain member of the state house who likely wouldn't have kept her district.
You can name names too.
Representative Tricia Cotham, who likely wouldn't have kept her seat if they didn't redraw the maps in that side of the county. And in the process, they finagled with the precincts in the East Charlotte area, and it created a brand new House district. Right. I got some calls from folks up in Raleigh and also from people here in Charlotte saying, hey, don't know if this was on your radar, but House District 112, you live in it now, and it's an open seat. You should consider running for it. And my immediate response was, no, I won't be doing that. I've got a decent job, but more importantly, if I run for office, I won't have any job, and that's a $13,000 a year salary. I can't afford to do that.
Right.
Let me find some folks who may be interested.
Right.
And I reached out to 4 or 5 different individuals, some who are already in service to our community, others who maybe own businesses in our community that I thought would be excellent representatives, still think they will be excellent representatives, and none of them were interested. As I mentioned before, it's a low salary, it's a grueling schedule, but everybody turned around and said, maybe you should consider it though.
Sure.
And you hear that 1 or 2 times, and as somebody who's already interested in government, as somebody who's interested in politics, it does make you think. So I prayed on it, talked to my family about it, talked to my bosses about it at the time to make sure I could keep that job until, figure something out. And everybody was cool. It felt like, why not take the chance? And I decided to run. So it was certainly not a wake up and just do it type of situation, but it has certainly been quite the journey.
I'm glad you took that turn. You are currently the youngest House representative?
The youngest Democrat in the legislature. So we do have one more member who is, I believe he's 22. He may be 23 at this point, but he ran, got elected out of the Greenville area out in eastern North Carolina. Young guy, but we sit on different sides of the aisle, so there's not a lot that we agree on, but he and I have chatted on occasion, and there are also some things that we do agree on, and that's the nature of the legislature. It's the nature of politics anyways, where I think most people see the red versus blue, and there is a lot that we don't like about what each other have to say, but then there's oftentimes a lot that we actually all agree on.
At my table at the summit, I had Representative McNeely and the other lady representative with the pink hair. I forget her name.
Representative Dahl?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. They just hearing them two go back and forth sitting at my table. They're opposite ends of the spectrum, like far right, far left. But it's very interesting because we all face that, right? We got 2-party system. It's ultimately the division. It's the definition of divide and conquer. We are a 2-party system, but we really need to go back to bipartisan agreements, because I think we've become so far left and so far right, most of us are being left out in representation. So thank you for taking that journey and deciding to become a House representative. Now that you are and that you're in there, you serve 2 years at a time? Is that how it works for House? So you're now in your sophomore year?
Still technically a freshman member, just in the second year of my freshman term.
Okay.
So I'm currently running for re-election this year. I do not have an opponent, so I will, earn a second term come November. But still plan on doing the work of running a campaign. I will still be knocking doors in my district, especially once it gets a little warmer and we get closer to the election time, because I want to make sure that since I am in a safe seat, since I don't have an opponent, I can do 2 things.
Right.
I can support Democratic, because, I'm a Democrat. I try my best to work with people on the other side of the aisle, but damn it, I want your seats. I would rather a Democrat have your seats. So I can help my colleagues in competitive districts, and that's something that I will be doing, whether it be knocking doors or doing events with them to make sure that they are filling support in their competitive districts. And then I will also be knocking doors in my own district, not only to make sure people know who their representative is, but to remind them, hey, we have an election coming up, and you don't have to worry about me. I don't have an opponent. Vote for me, please.
Right.
But, here's we have a state Supreme Court seat that is up for grabs this year, and we need to, and when I say we, I mean we as Democrats need to keep this seat.
Right.
We have a United States Senate seat that is up for grabs, and we need to send Roy Cooper to the Senate. It's reminding folks in East Charlotte that, hey, we have a lot going on. Yes, Mecklenburg is a very Democratic county. I think sometimes that deflates people's engagement in our electoral system, but it's like, hey, we gotta do more, because Mecklenburg County could have a large impact on the way statewide races go because of just how many people are here.
Sure.
It's just we got to do the work of turning those people out.
And I think it's important, too, to note that we're probably the most purple state in all of the 50 states, like meaning we could go red or blue at any point, and literally purple because of the more urban areas such as Charlotte, Raleigh, Asheville, things more liberal leaning areas, and you got rural areas that are very much so right leaning. So it's I think it's important to understand. I preach on this show all the time. You see me on social media all the time. Reach out to your representatives, support your representatives, email your representatives, have a conversation with your representatives. And that's so important. And people think it's unattainable, but really, like you said, they represent their constituents. So, I think it's important. I really wanted to touch on that of how important it is. I believe Berger's seat just got primaried. And I believe he lost by 2 votes.
On election day, it was 2, or election night, I say it was 2 votes. That has since opened up to about 23, I believe, is last I saw. They are still in the process of counting provisional ballots. They might have finished that up today, or I think today was when they're supposed to finish. But it does look like, that Senator Berger will lose his seat. And that's a significant change because Senator Berger is one of the longer serving members of his caucus right now in the state Senate. He is their leader, meaning he is really who Senate. But there are a lot of arguments actually made that Senator Berger is the most powerful politician in the state. And, North Carolina's legislature is one of the most powerful in the country. We have a traditionally weaker governor and a more powerful legislature. And so it's there's an argument to be made that the most powerful person in the state just lost in a primary. And throughout this whole saga have been reminded that it's because all politics are local.
Right.
If you're not visible in your community, if your community doesn't feel like you're actually showing up for them and more so showing up for yourself, or if you begin to get too comfortable and think you can just push whatever you want on your community, your voters will remind you, no, you can. And it seems like there were about 23 or 24 people who made the difference in saying, yeah, we're done.
And you think about that. I mean, you think about all of us. Listen, life gets busy, things get busy. At times we all think, man, our vote doesn't count.
It does.
And that's something we face in this industry with the cannabis industry, especially when we started fighting for it in 2019. I was under the thought of, we got a whole group up there representing us, and then we go up there and realize there really isn't representation for us. And you never can assume someone's got you covered. You got to make sure your voice is being heard, things like that. When I ask these people to reach out to their representatives and email them and call them on said given topic, whether it be supporting a bill, support the killing of a bill, what have you. Exactly how important are those emails and phone calls that you guys receive?
Extraordinarily important, especially, when you're reaching out to your member. We oftentimes, if there's a very controversial bill, something just fell in my eye. There's a very controversial bill, we will get emails from people across the state, But typically, depending on the service you use to reach out, if you do it through the legislature's website, it will ask you to put your address in. So that way the members can see this is a constituent reaching out to me. I do not want to say I need to take this more seriously as if one person's zip code invalidates the opinion of another. But there is something that members will take a bit more of a harder look at if I know I'm accountable to this person. So reaching out to your members is extraordinarily important. I joke about it often when I say if you reach out to me, and just clearing some notifications off my phone, that they come straight to my phone. I see the emails that get sent to my office as soon as they get sent in, whether they're from organizations, whether they're from lobbyists, whether they're from spam, or even if they are, especially if they are from constituents, I see it.
Right. And
that helps me really make sure when I speak on the floor or when I cast a vote or when I take an idea or a concern to a colleague who's sponsoring a bill or who I know maybe has some influence with the member who is sponsoring a bill, I can say, this is what my constituents are saying. This is how this is going to hurt them. Because I got elected and realized how many people, really when I ran for office, I realized how many people expect you to know. We all have our niche areas. You ask me about local government, you ask me about housing, you ask me about transportation policy. Like, I could probably give you some good information. You ask me about healthcare policy, I'm going to turn to my colleagues who are doctors or nurses, and I'm going to ask them those questions because I just don't have all the answers. Or I'll reach out to my community and say, hey, how are you guys feeling about this? I'll reach out to that, sticking with the healthcare topic. I'll reach out to a local clinic, in my community to ask, hey, what are some issues that you're seeing here with underinsured or uninsured patients that maybe we could tweak Medicaid to improve? Or I'll reach out to you, Mike, or we're talking about, actually, and I believe I did last year when we were talking about we were doing the regulatory bills for the hemp industry. Like, yep. Hey, what do you think about this? Right. And so it's important to have those relationships and to be able to reach out and kind of make it a two-way street, so that way you reach out to your members, but then make yourself available for members to reach back out to you.
Yeah. And I'm probably similar to you too. I had zero desire to be any part of politics, and honestly still probably more so than ever. But when going to Raleigh, I realized we didn't have many people representing us. I showed up in a T-shirt and I think shorts even at the time. And literally people weren't even looking up as I was speaking. And I looked at my people to my left and my right, and I think the guy beside me had dreads and the lady beside me had purple hair. And, they're cool. They're my people. But I realized who I'm talking to, the audience didn't well receive them. Mm-hmm. And I started going back, dressed nicer, started my own organization, lobbyist group, paying money ultimately towards lobbyist groups. And all of a sudden, I started getting recognized, and they started calling me for meetings and things. And one of the last times I went to Raleigh until this latest threat, I was actually sitting along with the elected officials in one of the meetings. So my point to all this, nothing's bigger than any one individual, right? Your voice is just as important, as you said, as any other person, but you have to be heard. And so many people, even in this process, like, I'd email them, but they don't care about my email, or I'd call and they don't care about my call. But literally certain representatives, you might feel this way too, said that at times they use kind of the pro and con emails and phone calls to help them make a decision on said topic. Mm-hmm. And it did not dawn on me until how vastly the knowledge base y'all really need to have, and the things that hit your desk on the daily. And Basel back there behind the computer, he sat in a lot of these meetings in Raleigh, and so many things get decided on daily that affects every part of our life, and there's literally no representation sitting there from the industry. It's our representatives, and big huge things like one of the ones we sat on that was people were spraying hog waste in the air and making the people around it sick, and they ultimately passed a law that made it impossible for you to sue the corporations doing this. And it was like a yay or nay vote. People barely looked up to vote it, and I'm sitting there voting for cannabis, so for me, I realized how quick, wow, we can get our voices heard. And luckily I have built a relationship with people like yourself, also across the aisle. I was raised pretty much born Democrat, but I have now registered independent because I don't want to be pigeonholed, number one. But there's been a couple times I've reached over and pulled that red lever. Not often, but in my old county, Catawba County, I had Representative Mitchell Setzer. And he is probably opposite of me in every way possible, literally every way possible. But he does believe in small business. He does believe in fundamental rights and things like that. So he and I actually talk probably every other week, if not every few weeks as well. Not likely to ever have anything in common at all, but I also reached out to him when we were going through the redistricting and all that. I wanted to hear someone else's opinion. I know how I feel, but I wanted to hear someone else's opinion. But that's important. Like, regardless of what side you believe in or what you're registered at, you got to have an open mind to compromise. And I think that's where we need to get back to, because we're so far left and right, like I said, that we're not really coming to compromise. And it seems like we make movement within a 4 to 2 year term for a lot of candidates, and then whatever candidate comes in next moves it back or whatever. But I think it's very important to stay engaged with all. I now probably about 6 or 7 House members I stay engaged with on this topic and many others. One of them I went to middle school and high school with, Representative Heffitch, Beth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I went to middle school and high school with her. She's actually my representative for my district in Cornelius. And I, too, thought about running, but I was like, she's doing such a great job. She, her and I see eye to eye on so many things. So, But I do appreciate that you guys do that. And you mentioned it too. You guys get paid a whopping $13,000 a year. Is that what it is?
Big bucks, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like 13,400 and something.
About that.
So how many, like 20 vacations a year off that alone probably, right?
20 on my private jet.
Right.
I usually go to my private island. Actually, not making private island jokes right now.
Right. Right.
Yeah, we clearly make a crap load of money.
Right.
No, in all seriousness, the salary is the issue. It is the barrier that prevents so many people from running for office in the first place. If you have a family, for example, or if you're young and you at least have hopes of starting a family, it seriously changes the way those plans look, or it changes the way activities look with your family. I speak to colleagues often, especially some of my freshman colleagues, that would mention, hey, we're not doing soccer for kid A this year because it's just not in the budget since I'm doing this now, or we're gonna have to give up music lessons for kid B because it's just not only is it, or maybe it's not even a budgetary thing, it's just a capacity thing for the parent that is back at home. When we're in Raleigh and during sessions, it's like they just can't do everything at the same time, and so it's quite the pull on, I think, everybody.
Now, most of you have to concurrently have another job or career at the same time. You yourself as well?
I do. I work at a nonprofit during the day. Okay. I do outreach and programs work for a nonprofit here in Charlotte. Literally, when I leave the studio today, we'll be going back to my office for the rest of today. And I spend most of my days there when we're in session. I work remote. I can either jump on a virtual meeting if we're having one as a team, or if I'm meeting with external partners, or I'm sending emails all day. But
can you give us a shout for your nonprofit?
Yeah, it's Our Bridge for Kids here in Charlotte. A wonderful organization that started as an after-school program specifically for immigrant and refugee children. Wow. We now have a location in East Charlotte, one in South Charlotte. I work at the Charlotte is Home Center. It's what we call the Charlotte is Home Center. It's a collaborative effort that brought together the Charlotte Community Health Clinic and one of their satellite offices to be brought into that space that we share. We have additional office space that was formerly used by a legal service provider. We're looking for either another legal service provider or maybe somebody who can support with workforce development, maybe both. But really the hope is, how can we be a resource stop for newcomers to our city to come and get the support they need to get on their 2 feet, and to know that they always have a trusted ally, really, that is right here to support them on their journey in Charlotte.
And that's a bridge?
Our Bridge for Kids.
Our Bridge for Kids. Mm-hmm. All right. Make sure y'all get involved and give to that, and we'll see if we can't do the same. We got questions coming in yet, Basel? We got one. You sent it my phone? Yeah. Cool. We're going to see if we can take a couple questions as we go through this, man. You're doing great. Thank you again for being here. Let's see here. The one at the bottom. Drew Bowman asks, how can we best work to get in touch with other representatives and try to push change in North Carolina? We really need to save our hemp industry, and it's hard to get past a campaign manager or assistant.
Come to the building. You got to come to Raleigh, and I hate saying that as if it's just like a just thing you do, because I know getting to Raleigh is difficult. I have to make that drive once a week when we're in session. It's 2.5 hours. If you have a day job, that means taking a day off. So it's not easy. I don't say that lightly, but that is one of the best ways to get in front of your members, is to show up in Raleigh. That is your building. Your taxpayer dollars pay for it. Come see us. And once you find one or two allies in the building, leverage the allies that you have to put you in spaces with other members as well, whether it's asking for an introduction or asking for a joint meeting. But then also, push the legislative assistants too. I was a legislative assistant before, so I don't feel any way of saying this, like push us or push them. In many ways, my old boss used to joke with me a lot about like being the legislator, because not only was I the only technical full-time employee in the office, but also had a bigger salary than him. Like our legislative assistants make more than the members. And so it's like, build relationships with the assistants.
I think about that.
It's kind of funny to think about. Build relationships with the assistants, because that is in a lot of cases the gatekeeper, and I don't mean that in a negative connotation, but like they manage the schedules, they are returning the emails, they are kind of trying to plot out phone calls and when the member can return. So build a relationship with them, and hopefully, I can't speak for everybody, but hopefully that legislative assistant can ultimately get you in touch with the member as well. But it's persistence, it's showing up. There's a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that is very true with literally any issue. Is you got to make noise about it in an effort to get heard.
I love that. I wanted to list off a couple names of the people that were in attendance in our panel the other day, and you'll hear some of these names. You'll probably be kind of surprised to get support for them. We had Representative Zach Hawkins, Representative Charlie Miller, Renee Price, Heather Ryan, Amy Gailey, Todd Johnson, and Paul Lowe. That was just one of the panels. And I think by hearing those names, you realize how vastly sided they all are, right? But they all sat up on the stage and agreed that we need to get something in place here in North Carolina, not only to protect the industry, protect our consumers. And I want to touch on another thing too that you and I think share on is the impact this war on drugs and war on cannabis has had disproportionately to minorities. I believe it's 3-to-1 ratio that minorities are locked up or charged with cannabis crimes to non-minorities. Yeah. So I think it's very important. And that, let's talk about that and how it plays into the structure of family and what it does to the structure of family when one of the supporting cast members of a family is incarcerated because of possession of something that now is so vastly widely available across this country. No,
it's a huge issue. I mean, with the backdrop of similar usage rates across races,
right?
Black and brown people are. You said 3. I think I saw 4 somewhere.
Right.
4 times more likely to be arrested for it. It has a huge impact on the family structure because, to your point of taking away one of the breadwinners, if there's a family of 2 breadwinners, taking away one, that's 50% of the income. Or I know the math can vary depending on the family, but like that's 50% of somebody's income. How do you make that up? How do the kids then get to and from school? How do the kids get to and from paying for appointments? Does that have an impact on their insurance or their insurability? No. Are they keeping insurance? While that one parent is incarcerated. I mean, that has a comprehensive impact on a family from finances specifically, and I think that gets brought up to the front because then that lack of finances or the loss of finance has a waterfall effect of affecting health, affecting school, affecting, and kind of lumping in with health, mental health.
Impacts.
Very much so, a generational impact. And then what does it do for that kid to kind of now be going through a tumultuous time in life, losing one parent to the system, maybe having another parent that you lose to capitalism, really, that has to work to keep you in your home, keep the lights on, keep you fed, keep you clothed.
It's almost this perpetuating cycle.
Absolutely.
And I used to say the system is broken, but honestly, I feel like the system's working just as it was designed. And many people will argue, and a lot of things prove that the modern day prison system and judiciary system is ultimately an extension of slavery and cheap labor from the slavery days. So this is something directly related to race, where the very first drug czar of the United States, Henry Anslinger, was very notably racist. And one of his first public comments after doing a study on cannabis use was that white women that smoke or use marijuana end up being with black men. And he's right, but no, I'm joking. But he said so many awful things. One of the things, he had a cannabis expert that testify under oath in court that once he tried cannabis, he turned into a bat. So this is what we're dealing with here, right? And then you go through all the years of the Nixon administration, admittingly he had studies done to prove how dangerous this is, proved the exact opposite of that. But admittingly now coming Truth Information Act, we learned that he used it as a tool to come after the anti-war, the hippies, and ultimately the black community through the jazz musicians. So this is something politically driven by race throughout time since the Stamp Act of 1937. So it's not pulling the race card, it is directly impact. Yeah. The very word marijuana has negative racial connotation because it was used as propaganda to make us fear our neighbors to the south in Mexico coming across the border. And they were making people fear of these immigrants coming in on marijuana to rape and pillage your village, ultimately. So there's so many political propaganda things that's been thrown in this for over 100 years. So I think it's important to understand the direct impact on keeping it illegal has. And when you have less than 8% of the legal market represented by minorities, less than 3% female minorities, you really start to see the unfairness of this whole thing.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why it ties me any political climate issue today, and I will throw back at you a fix that can be fixed through proper regulation and laws around cannabis and drug use in general.
I think building off of just like the racial disparity of it all, let's on the other side of the same coin, maybe let's say it's legalized, whether it be for medical purposes or recreational. Some states, and I'll use North Carolina, a member who has introduced a bill to legalize medical marijuana several terms now, to get a license to sell. It's usually, I can't remember how much that fee was. It was maybe $250,000 to get the license.
Unreachable, yeah.
We're not even talking the storefront. We're not even talking the product. We're not even talking staffing. We're just talking the license to do it in the first place. $250,000, or maybe it was even more than that. That immediately sets the bar way higher than what most people, especially small minority business owners, would be able to attain.
Sure.
You're effectively closing off the market to even more minorities from being able to get in. Same thing could be said about farmers trying to switch over into the industry. When you make it impossibly hard, even when it's legalized, to get into the market for minorities,
modern day
there's
Jim
still
Crow.
exactly there is still a racial aspect to it.
And that's incredible and truly important to understand, because I'm going through similar things. We're trying to get licensed in Virginia. Virginia went rec legal under the bipartisan bill that came through the House and Senate, made it to the governor's desk, Youngkin's desk. Thank goodness he's out. And it died on his desk. And they have a new governor, very progressive governor, female governor, that has said she is going to sign whatever bill comes across her desk for recreational. Why that's even more important is if we lose this industry in North Carolina, to your point earlier, not only are we not going to have the revenue in this state that comes from the sale of these products, we're literally going to have everybody going right across that border, buying products right in Virginia, driving right across our border again, and now it becomes our law enforcement's issue, our community's issue, becoming a criminal, driving from one state to the other. It just, these very things that these representatives say they're trying to fix with these bills, they're making it worse. As you make it harder for adults, of age adults, to make decisions of what they put in their body, they have to turn back to the black market, to criminal activities of having to cross borders, potentially asking to get things shipped through the mail. It becomes unsafe because you don't know what the products are. Most of your black market dealers have other drugs that they also sell. So now you're not going to buy cannabis. Now you're exposed to other drugs. Mm-hmm. And with fentanyl and exposure to fentanyl and cross-contamination, it can become very dangerous. So the very things that your colleagues say they're trying to fix with this ban, they're actually making worse. And in that process, ultimately they're using the lack of regulation our industry has over and over against us. Yeah. And you had mentioned the bill that you called and asked me about. That was a stripped down bill, Senate Bill 328, that all we tried to do, we took everything else out of it. The only thing it was an age gating bill. And that died because it's used as leverage and a tool against us. So there's so many games being played. It's no longer about, is this a safe thing or not? It's literally about politics, control, and money. Am I right with that? Absolutely. So we do have a bill that we almost got passed last year, Senate Bill 265, or was it House Bill? Senate Bill 265. It made it to, we had the votes, we had it passed. Senator Bill Rabin took Senate Bill 3, which is a medical bill, and threw it in as an amendment on our bill and killed it, and it died. So in the short session, things are very hard to get done, especially when you have pressing things like a budget, like redistricting lines.
That shouldn't come up. Hopefully that doesn't come up. We did that last year, so we should be good on that for a while.
And then, of course, affordability. We now are entered into a conflict or war, whatever you want to call it, that is causing prices of things to go up daily. So it's so important to get these things done, but we have this much of a chance to get it done. It is not at the top of anybody's list, I would say, in the whole representation of chamber, or Senate, or House, or Congress. So it's important, but what at least your colleague said on Tuesday is that we're hoping to resurrect Senate Bill 265 and add the compassionate care language to that. So ultimately, you have a hemp hybrid bill. Is that something more in line that you're looking that you could get behind, or are you really trying to push the rec side, or you just want to see positive movement?
I want to see positive movement. So no, I would be in favor of a hybrid bill like that. Of course, my end goal is recreational being legalized here in North Carolina, but I am for positive steps in the right direction to get us there. Nothing happens overnight. I knew that when I filed the bill in the first place, that I was filing something that would likely not see movement. But it didn't see movement, but to my surprise, several members, powerful members, would stop by the office to say, hey, actually not mad at your bill. You know, it's not going anywhere, but not mad at your bill.
That's kind of the feedback I got from people talking about it too. And, it's funny. If you tried that 5 years ago, you probably would have got completely laughed out of the place. And even at this summit, man, you got to understand, I've been in this since 2017, 18. There was no GOP support. There was no, Republican support for us at all. Republic support, yeah, even. And Representative Kelly Alexander, he passed away, but I know he fought for 20 years trying to get something to the table.
The bill that I filed actually is Representative Alexander's bill. You know, if you see the sponsors on that bill, or the final two primary co-sponsors are the two sponsors that were on his bill, and the second primary co-sponsor was the representative who succeeded Representative Alexander, Representative Aisha Dew. And so she and the other two sponsors decided, let's keep this conversation going, because we don't want it to not continue to be a thing. And like I mentioned, I plan on doing just as Representative Alexander did. I will probably continue to file this bill with tweaks. Kind of expanding on 413 for a moment, one of the things that it did with revenue was created 3 different pots of money for it: cannabis reinvestment and repair fund, a cannabis enterprise fund specifically for like disadvantaged communities, and then a abuse and education fund. I will likely keep one of those funds, or maybe 1.5.
Sure.
The repair and reinvestment fund that would create programs or fund the creation of programs that do things like first-time home buying programs, support for education, support for small businesses, and then the education and abuse fund. I think those are 2 important pots. However, I was talking with some folks, or have been talking with some folks, about other issues, and somehow keep tying it back to marijuana, primarily because of funding for like transportation issues across the state, or housing affordability across the state. Like, how can we tie in these other great needs that we have in North Carolina to revenue generated by legalizing marijuana, to say like, hey, we can use the money we make off of this to address some real issues that we are seeing across the state? And it's like, does that make it more favorable to you? Like, I don't think anybody I'm not just up here advocating legalized marijuana because I want to walk through Charlotte and smell cannabis everywhere I go, or because I want to see the smoke clouds. Like, hey, people do with their business is what they do.
Right.
I'm doing it because not only is that something that people should have the right to choose for themselves to do, but we could also use the money to do a lot of good. And so it's
that's what I think, and I think that's the connection I have with people that don't see eye to eye to me. They might not believe in cannabis. Most of them never even use cannabis, but they do believe in freedoms, and they believe in small business. And I think that's one of the points that we can build off of. Absolutely. And I also agree with you. Being an avid smoker, cannabis user, my freedom starts and stops as I impede on other people, where I think it should be my freedom to be able to smoke. It is not my freedom to be able to smoke and impose that smoke on people in public. So I think that's important to remember. Like, we can also put in consumption laws and things like that for public consumption, because we should be able to do whatever we want in the privacy of our homes. Absolutely. As long as we're not affecting others. And that's where my beliefs come in. I think we should have that freedom, but not impose our freedom on other people.
True.
So you heard it. He said he's going to get it done. Industry saved. We're done. Nah. But yeah, so the likelihood of a short session is tough, but I think we can get it done. We're going to be working with your colleague, Senator Bell and Rabin. And apparently they've been in talks or whatever to get this thing revitalized. And we will be calling on all of you and asking for your support as that comes in April. And give this man support to help him get others elected, make sure he stays in that seat. Please. He's exactly what we need in that district and in this county. I have a couple other questions here that came yesterday before we did this. Some fun ones. Mm-hmm. What is the biggest myth about being a state representative that people would be shocked to learn isn't true?
I think we're going back to the salary. I think people think so. There are some politicians in Raleigh who have a lot of money.
Right.
Now, it is not specifically because they got elected and through the legislature alone made a lot of money. I think that's always what they do off to the side, what they do
insider trading information is
hey,
what it is.
Hey, what anybody does over there,
Right,
that's
right.
I stay above the board.
Right.
But I think when I tell people, hey, my salary is only $13,000 a year, the jaw drops. Like,
Right.
oh, you're poor. Yes, I am. Actually, or at least if I didn't
That
have
probably
another
doesn't
job,
even
I
cover
would
your
be.
gas money going back in between Raleigh.
And so we do get reimbursements for gas
Okay.
outside of the salary, but the reimbursement rate was set in the early 2000s. So I think it might be like a quarter, basically, per mile, which is woefully out of touch. I mean,
Right.
I think the current standard is like 75 cents per mile or something like that for reimbursement rate. So it's about 50 cents short of where it should be.
Right.
But yeah, that salary I think is always the shocker.
It is a shocker, and I believe senators only get slightly more than, or
No, they make the same.
Or same. Wow.
Exact same. They
and there's
represent double our district.
120 House representatives.
120 House members, 50 over in the Senate.
Okay. See, I'm learning these things. We had to do a lot of catch up at ChatGPT things before you got here. If politics were like high school, what kind of student would North Carolina be, and where would you sit in the cafeteria?
If politics were a classroom, what kind of student would North Carolina be?
Yeah. You gotta love these, man. We can skip it to if you want, but
No. We can.
But it's very so. The way I see politics is, you get elected, but it's also very cliquish, right?
Yes.
And you have to build relationships within your colleagues, and they're also ranking, correct? And different committees you get on and things like that. So I guess where would you see North Carolina in? Is it summa cum laude, or is it like me, maybe somewhere C style student? Or
North Carolina, I'd give an honor student for sure. We have a lot of great things going in our state. We have a lot of opportunities here. We are one of the fastest growing states. There is clearly something about North Carolina that a lot of people are attracted to. So not only an honor student, but that honor student who also happens to be very popular too. We have so many incredible universities, whether it be our HBCUs or our other UNC system schools.
Yes.
We have so many jobs, whether it be in the Triangle or right here in the Charlotte if you're into banking or tech. We have the geography literally all of them. We have mountains, we have cities, we have beaches. So it's a great state, and I think we do have some things to work on for sure. Not even just talking take the partisanship out of it. I'm not going to just say if we had blues in charge, we would be a better state than having reds in charge. But we do have some glaring gaps, education, public education being one of them. We talked about it earlier, where it's one of those things that has such a profound impact on everybody's life, whether you realize it or not. But particularly our students, we're not doing the best by our students right now. We have opportunities to improve cost of living for people where we can control. We don't control the president of the United States starting a war with Iran, but we can control things or have a greater influence on our utility providers like Duke Energy that is gouging our customers right now, and having ratepayers pay, see their bills go from, let's say, $120 to $450 a month. I mean, if you're a senior on fixed income, how do you account for that in your budget? So there are some things, but I think all in all, I'm proud of the state. I am proud of the direction we're heading in, and proud to be a representative here.
I'm getting there. I remember the days of Jesse Helms in this state. One question is not on here. I'm just going to ask, how do you feel about term limits?
We need them. We need them. I'd be in support of it. I oftentimes joke with people. I'm one of the youngest members, the youngest on my side of the aisle, and I always say, you will not see me in this building as old as the age of some of my current colleagues. I just won't be there forever, and I don't want to be.
You probably
I can make that promise. I will not be there because, it's one of those things where, in my opinion, leadership is something that, if you're a good leader, you're also pulling somebody up behind you. And I'm in my first term, so I'm not exactly already, eyeballing who I want to succeed me. I still have work I want to do. I still want to be here for at least a few more terms. But if I get to year 10, somebody needs to tap me on my shoulder and say, hey, what are you doing next? Because it's been a decade. You need to move on.
And it's most likely one of your staffers.
It could be.
Could
I mean,
It's-
I went from LA to being a member. It could be my legislative assistant. So it's like, it's important to create the space for new ideas, for new people to come in. I don't own the seat that I sit in. I'm given the opportunity to represent it for 2 years at a time. And I hope to continue to represent it for, like I said, a few more terms. But I'm fully in favor of term limits.
Yeah, I love that. Man, I wish we had more like you.
Same.
Get out and vote. Damn it. Fix it. We're getting real. One thing that you wish voters would stop asking you about every single session. That's probably a tough one. I know you're probably open to it all.
I mean, I'm in my first session, so I can't say every single, but I would say one thing I get asked a lot about is to control the federal government. Like, can you get the Senate to kill this bill? Can you get the House to do this? Can you get the president to do that? I'm a state representative. I can write a letter. I can,
Which is powerful.
It can be. I can introduce.
If anybody listens to the current administration, that's different.
I can write a resolution, and ask my colleagues to support it, but then that requires the full body voting on it, which a freshman member just doesn't always get the opportunity to do. But I don't control the federal government as much as I wish I could have some influence, especially in this administration. I just don't have it. But it's not to say that I don't care. I will be happy. My office is always happy to put you in touch with your federal representative, but I'm not the right point of contact for those issues.
How do you feel about shrimp?
Big fan,
I'm
but
joking. When I was up in Raleigh last time, we call it Shrimp Gate. The Shrimper Association showed up.
Shut the building down.
Shut the building down. If you were in Raleigh, there was no way you did not know they were there. They showed up in T-shirts. They had 18-wheelers traveling around the Capitol. Whatever they were fighting for, they got their way.
They did.
And almost instantly. So showing up and showing out will get things done. Let's see here. What is your wildest or funniest thing that's happened to you so far in the house that would never make it to the news?
The wildest or the funniest thing?
Yeah. Probably nothing wild or funny up there, right?
Yeah, not too wild or funny. I mean, the most interesting thing is because of my age, I get mistaken for a staff member all the time. We'll get in the elevator. I mean, at least I did early on. After a few months, you get to know the people, like the sergeant at arms or the different members of our nonpartisan staff will see you and they know who you are at that point. But early on, getting on the elevator and somebody look at you, who do you work for? I'm like, the people of House District 112, actually. Like, I'm a member, but those are some of the more interesting things is getting mistaken as staff.
Committees. Are you part of any committees, and how do you get on a committee, and how important is that within the legislation?
So I serve on 3 committees currently: House Finance Committee, House Finance Committee, House Transportation Committee, and then the House Housing and Development Committee, which I asked for, and that's kind of how the committee process works. You every session, at the beginning of every long session at least, you'll get an email with a form, and it'll say, please, let us know what committees you prefer to be on. Most members will try to do it based on where they have actual expertise or some knowledge about, or in my case with finance specifically, wanting to learn more about. Finance committee, you have finance and appropriations when it comes to money in North Carolina. Finance is the committee that sets or considers bills around taxing. How do we raise the money? Appropriations is how do we spend the money? I know how money gets spent. I was very curious at learning more about how we raise money and the different opportunities to create revenue. But transportation and housing and development tie back into my master's degree. My master's specializes in urban management. So it's like there's a lot of things that I believe I had to offer, but then also could simultaneously take away from a committee like that. And how, with respect to their importance, extraordinarily important. That is where committees are oftentimes under noticed. People aren't, at least unless there's a really controversial bill, people aren't like getting onto YouTube to check out what the Housing and Development Committee is doing. But that is where most members, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, have the biggest opportunities to impact legislation. So bills are filed, they look a certain way. Very rarely do they make it from the way they were filed to the floor without any changes. Almost always those changes occur in committee. So if you want to see something get changed, if you want to see something get done, as you noted, going to these committees and being a part of the process, that's where you do it. It's the ugly work. It's the boring part of the legislature. I actually find it pretty fascinating. But I
think it's where the most colorful comments come from.
Absolutely. you either hear how informed or uninformed somebody is during committee when they're talking about an issue.
Right. It is absolutely incredible. And you can almost pick out what people represent, what districts, when you really get up there to know without even knowing. But it's great, man. I think more than ever we've reached a political climate where people are realizing the people are upset. Yep. And we're really wanting change, and we're willing to go to extreme lengths to get it.
You know, after last year's election, after 2024's election, I guess I'll say, excuse me, of course, I was pissed that Trump won. Not voting for Trump. I hate everything that guy stands for, his administration stands for. Absolutely not. But the one thing that I always said, especially as we talk to voters, and especially as an elected now, but somebody who wants to continue to be a leader in our city, our county, and our state, is that there are people in my district who voted for Donald Trump. There are people that may be in this building who voted for Donald Trump, and it's like, I can't just be, no, I don't want to talk to you. I don't like you. I don't care about anything you say because you voted for that person. Because I know for a fact that I actually can't quantify it, but if I had to guess, 7 times out of 10, you voted for the guy because he was promising big changes.
Right.
And you know that the way Washington has worked, you know that the way even Raleigh has worked over the past decade, 2 decades, however long, has not been working. And you're tired of voting for the same politicians, even if they're of a different color or a different party, excuse me. You're just like, it's so much of the same. And Trump offered as
change.
Yeah, and I'm because I almost cursed. He offered what many people value as change.
Correctness that has to come out of it.
And so like I try to respect that and say like people voted because they're tired of seeing the same old, and that is what resonated to me the most after 2024 is we can't just keep doing the same things. We can't just vote for me because that side's bad. Right. No, vote for me because I want to do X, Y, and Z to improve your life. I want to invest in your schools to make sure your kid is learning more and that they're safe there. I want to invest in our infrastructure because in the United States of America in 2026, we shouldn't have roads that get flash flooding because we don't have the water infrastructure to deal with it. It's one of the most ugly things to think about. Like nobody's just like, water infrastructure, but it's something that when it impacts you, you expect it to just work, and that's what government should do is just work. I don't want people to think about their electricity going off because we in North Carolina have a solid grid that doesn't cost you $500 a month, Duke Energy. Or you're thinking about how to get from Charlotte to Raleigh because you want to take a day trip or from Charlotte to Asheboro because you want to take a day trip with your kids to the zoo, and instead of driving, you say, hey, we're going to hop on the train because we know North Carolina, and I wish we had this, but it's still years off, because North Carolina has higher speed rail that can get you from city to city in less than 3 hours like it takes now. And I mean, Amtrak is perfectly fine. I love taking our trains. I've done it to Raleigh a couple of times, but like, could it be faster? Yes. If we just took the time and had actually the political courage to invest in these things, like give people something to vote for is the point that I'm trying to make. And it can't just be because the other side is bad. That's just not
one
good.
of the more powerful times of our summit this week, there were campaign managers, I guess they were, both Democrat and Republican sitting on stage. You probably know them. One of them's involved with Cooper's campaign right now.
Morgan Jackson.
Morgan. Mm-hmm. So they were up there. That was probably one of the more insightful parts of our summit, talking about introspective as politics in general. It's always a pendulum, right? We talk about Trump's been cooked in the midterms already, the blue wave that's coming. But naturally that happens against whoever's currently in office, because we're wanting change from what it currently is. And, so it's always this swinging pendulum one way. And it went so far the way in 24 that I knew we're headed ultimately the other way. What do you think ultimately can slow down this pendulum? Where can get us back to being moderates? What can get us back to being bipartisan? As like, if you said, this is one of the major things I can switch on and correct that, what do you think would get us back united besides a common enemy?
So that's a big question that I want to answer. So I'm not a moderate. I'm a progressive, and I'm proud of that. And I don't plan on becoming a moderate. I believe in what I believe in, and I think we all should believe in what we believe in.
Right.
But I do believe in bipartisanship, because I know that I don't agree with every single thing that my party does. And I know that at least before this administration, I would look at things that the Republican Party, some things, like literally one or two, if I can think back, and say, like, actually, that's not a bad idea. It's right. Like there are, or just basic human, like, decency. You mentioned Representative Setzer. I'm sure that, as you mentioned, you guys don't agree on a lot, but I'm sure throughout those conversations you've come to know he's a good guy, though. He's somebody you can talk to. And if you bring up things, I'll bring up Representative Donnie Loftus out in Gaston County, somebody that if you look at the two of us, you say, oh, they have nothing in common. We both care about food insecurity. and we've been talking about how can we work together to make sure we're putting opportunities on the table for people to get food. Like,
sure.
I just believe in talking with each other. And as far as how we get back to that space, I try my best every day not to look at anybody as an enemy. I think we've gotten too far down this path of, in order to secure power, I have to hate you. In order to secure power, I have to make my constituents hate you, because then they vote for me or my party, and then that gives us more power. I think we have to get away from that mindset of in order to get further, I have to tear somebody down, because then that just disincentivizes anybody from working with anybody. So yeah, I want people to believe in what they believe in. Of course I want to change your mind if I can. I want to press you to expand your way of thinking if I can, and I expect to be challenged to expand my way of thinking when possible. But like, I think it has to be rooted in a space of, I'm here because I want to make people's lives better. So let me shut up every once in a while and hear what other people think we could be doing to do that. And then let's figure out what we agree on to then take us forward. It doesn't have to be, everybody has to think the same way, because everybody will never think the same way. But can we respect the differences in how we think along the way? That's what's missing.
I got that. I dig that. I love that answer. Any more questions come in? Got one? Cool. And thank you, man, again, for being part of this. Let's see here. You're one of the youngest members of the North Carolina legislature. What advice would you give to young people who want to get involved in politics today?
Whenever I tell people my story, it's a great question. Whenever I tell people kind of how this journey kicked off, or like, really, why was Jordan? Why when the District 112 was drawn and it became a new seat, why did Jordan Lopez become the name that people start asking? Is a question that I ask myself every once in a while. But I like to think it's because, and this is me just thinking, but I like to think it's because I just started showing up and doing work at the legislature as a legislative assistant. But then when I moved back to Charlotte in 2022, the nonprofit that I now serve as the chair of the board of, their events, when I got back to Charlotte, I would hear about it. I know they're doing something. I would just show up and say, hey, where do you guys need some help? Where can I lend a hand? Is it working this check-in table? Is it cleaning up when it's done? Like, how can I help? And I always tell that story. Well, and then that kind of just snowballed into a lot of other things. And then I think I became a trusted resource or voice in East Charlotte. And so I say that to say, start showing up where the need is and ask how you can help. You will. It's not always the most fun thing to do. Well, I like helping people; it's fun, but like, it's not always you won't always get credit for it immediately. You won't. You may never in some cases, but what will happen is along the way, people will notice that. People will see you as somebody who shows up to get things done. They will see you as somebody they can rely on when you say, hey, I'm going to be at that cleanup on Saturday, or hey, I'm going to be at that event at the church on Sunday. They don't have to question that. They know you're reliable, and they know you're going to come when you say you were or you are. Let's say a seat opens up and you want to run for office one day, and you start going to the people that you have worked with in your community along the way and saying, hey, so-and-so, I'm thinking about running for this city council seat. Hey, so-and-so, I'm thinking of running for state house. Can I, would you be interested in supporting me? I would love to tell you what I want to work on. Because they've seen you in the community, because they've seen you as a trusted partner, 8 times, 9 times out of 10, sometimes 10 times out of 10, they're going to say, hell yeah, how can I help? What do you need? Do you need me to cut a check? Do you need me to go knock on doors? What do you need me to introduce you to people? Because you're exactly who we need. Running for office starts years before you actually put your name on the ballot. And I would say don't do things with the hidden agenda of, I'm just doing this to run for office. I think you will, if you do that, you will find very quickly it's not for you. You will burn out quickly. Politics, being in office has a really good way of opening the curtains, if you will, or pulling back the curtains, I guess, if you will, on who you actually are. So you will get exposed if you're just, running on this hidden agenda. I'm just going to show up to be nice to people to get elected. Exactly. Yeah. So, if you're coming from a place of you truly want to serve, if you're coming from a place of I just want to help people, you can do that right now. And I promise you that is helping you build your case for running for office long before you even decide to do it.
Amazing. I love that. Any other ones coming yet, Basel? I'm going to jump in. That's a great segue to this about how to getting involved. As you guys see at home, I have this insignia here on my shirt, CBHD. I wanted to talk a little bit about what that is. This is the group that threw the summit in Raleigh and Cary this week. There are 11 board members on this board. This stands for Cultivating breakthroughs of healthy development. We are now composed of 11 board members that are ultimately the largest representatives of the hemp industry here in North Carolina. You talk about getting along with your colleagues, even ones you don't necessarily believe. We're all built of colleagues of mine that are ultimately competitors. But we all have the same vision of what this industry can and should be. And we have all united together to move some sort of legislation forward in North Carolina and ultimately, intendedly, abroad later. We're right now focused on North Carolina. You can find us at cbhd.news. There's ways on there to sign up for our newsletter, to donate, to ultimately just become a member. We also have a campaign going through our company called Protect the Plant. You can find it on our website, crowntowncannabis.com. There's a section there, Protect the Plant. It's more of a vessel that tells you about the different organizations that are fighting for us and we have the same voice with, and a little bit about those organizations like American Agriculture First, American Healthy Alternatives Association, U.S. Hemp Roundtable, even though we're a little salty at y'all right now for coming out with a 0.5 milligram cap out the gate, and CBHD. There's all these different organizations that we've adopted one plant mentality and one voice mentality where we're asking for the basic things. We're asking for age gating, 21 and up. We're asking for licenses to be required for retailers, producers, and farmers alike. We're asking for testing and labeling requirements to be implemented so we know exactly what's in these products, and that is posted on the packaging. And ultimately, we're asking for regulation and taxation to help pay that. We know that enforcement of these laws takes people to come out and make sure we are being regulated properly. That's more jobs that we're creating, but we will create the funding to pay for these jobs. So a little selfless plug, CBDHD, what we're ultimately are, we are the firewall for this industry in North Carolina. What we're doing is collecting money. None of us on the board are getting paid. We actually pay to be on the board. Last time I checked, I think earlier in the week, we're somewhere around $600,000 since mid-January raised. And what we simply do is support people like Representative Lopez that support us. And we do that through campaign contributions. We are a 501c4. Yeah, there we go. So we can take funds from both corporation as well as the public, and through other organizations we work with, like the acronym HEMP, HEMP. I forget what it stands for. I'm sorry with all these acronyms. But we support candidates, whether it be through campaigning or getting funds together to try to get some initiative passed, marketing campaigns. I think it's very important to understand the cost of running for office is very expensive. I had a wild thought for a second last year that I might want to run for office, and I looked into running for Senate, actually. And just to run for Senate in North Carolina, a campaign costs currently somewhere between $700 million and $1 billion currently to run for Senate in North Carolina. I think presidency is in the multi-billions of dollars. And that's kind of a small portion of how much money goes into this. And every campaign we're running to save this industry costs money. Every lobbyist we're paying to help save this industry costs money. Marketing and advertising groups, photographers, videographers, we're no different than any other businesses. Ultimately, how elections are won is through who raises the most campaign funds. And it's almost a direct correlation, almost 90%, probably 98% of the time, of they who raise the most money gets the position. So I always hate bringing it back to money, but money is what makes the world go round. Unfortunately, I didn't make the rules. We just got to play by them. And CBDHD is no different. So get involved. Make sure you're part of this movement. Yes, this one's about cannabis, but ultimately it's about freedoms and rights as adults in this state and having representation, because today it's us, tomorrow it's you and your organization. And the only way you fight back through this is in unity and numbers, joining constituents that have voting power and money, and that's it. And get organized and involved. And I think we blew away all the representatives this week. The challenge we heard since November is, y'all can turn this around, but we don't really believe that you can unify and get it together. And we've heard a lot of feedback statewide as well as federally that everybody's kind of blown away about how much pushback they're getting. But do not take your foot off the gas. We got a lot of movement to make. Once I win this fight, I got a lot more that I'm going to jump in. But right now, that is my fight. We would like to support you in any kind of way we can, and I would like to think we have your support as well. We're doing the Protect the Plant campaign to stay non-biased. So as people's positions change politically, like Hemp Roundtable did, we can stop supporting groups that are no longer in alignment with what we're trying to get done. So that was my selfless plug on CBHD. For those that don't know, there's a grassroots organization that is very powerful so far. We're trying to get $500,000 raised per month, and then we can ultimately become our own caucus. So that's the selfless plug on that. Other than that, please get involved. We do have a deadline looming, November 12th, 2026. We're done. We got rescheduling that has been called for by the Trump administration that has ultimately gone nowhere. I think it was more posturing and political movements more than anything, but we are calling for rescheduling. And within that rescheduling, there's an executive order calling out for a carve-out, particularly for the hemp industry. So we're trying to get an extension through the Baird bill. On the federal level, we're asking for a 2-year extension beyond the November 12th deadline, and ultimately trying to outlast so we can see the rescheduling efforts and what the federal movement's going to be. But ultimately, I'm going to challenge you and everybody else in your constituent or your colleagues is help us save this industry, because it's not the perfect answer, but it's a step in the right direction. And we have built this industry out of the mud. I've been in this industry in North Carolina since I was 13. I'm now 45 years old. So I've seen and heard and went through the, being part of the normal chapter and different representatives trying to get this thing over the years. But we're way past due. Every other state surpassing us right now. I mean, Colorado, some of their programs are fully funded. Education programs. I think just by being a resident of Colorado, you get 2 years of college paid for post-graduation through the cannabis funds. Mental health programs, drug rehabilitation programs, all these things that are short funded anyway, we can fund it right now. So that's my spiel. Other than that, this is a cannabis show. I won't even ask you on camera. All I'm going to say is at some point we should share some cannabis product, whether it be late in your career or whatever. I won't even put you on the spot for that now. But I truly think if we airdrop joints across this world, we'd all be hugging and having dinner. This plant has united me with people and put me in rooms I never thought I'd be in. Basel and I, my man behind the camera, we always revel in that. I'm in rooms now that I might have been in 5 or 6 years ago as a server, as someone setting up the tables or cleaning, and now only am I not in these rooms. A lot of times I'm leading the discussion in these rooms, and I owe it all to cannabis and the humbling experience it's gave me coming up in politics and learning politics really quick, learning how to speak to people that don't necessarily believe the things I believe. But that's what it takes. It's a microcosm of the larger issue we have in this state and this country is we have to sit down and have the uncomfortable conversations. We have to come up with a solution. Putting our heads in the sand or turning our backs to a problem does not fix it. Whether it be cannabis, whether it be housing, whether it be food. If you're going to sit back and think the other groups got it handled, you're badly mistaken and you're going to be badly disappointed. We have to stand up for what we believe in wholeheartedly every day and let our voices be heard. And quick phone calls, quick emails, quick donations to campaigns make all the difference in the world. That's my piece. What do you want to leave the people with? Anything you want to drop? Where can they find you?
Well, first, just want to say thank you, Mike, for having me on. This has been really cool. Please follow me on social media. I'm on X at Jordan A. Lopez _, or you can find my campaign page on Instagram at Lopez, LOPEZ, the number 4 NC. Would appreciate a follow. My campaign website is Lopez, LOPEZ, the number 4 NC.com. If you want to learn more about myself, our platform, If you want to make a donation, some shameless plug here as well. If you want to do that,
Money makes the world go round.
Hey, I need it. I like I said, I'm working to support candidates across our state so that way we can get moving in the right direction. But really, just want to echo the importance of organizing, the importance of getting involved, the importance of reaching out. I mean, I am not the only representative that is responsive or that is willing to go and meet with folks where they are. Just take that chance. Whether if I am your representative, I would love to hear from you, would love to reach out, or would love to make contact. If you want to grab a coffee, let's do it. If I'm in Charlotte, be happy to. But otherwise, it takes, I said it a few moments ago, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It takes making noise. It takes making organized noise, especially. But you got to do it if you want to see this state move in the right direction, whether that be on cannabis, whether that be on education, whether that be on housing, whether that just be getting a budget in the first place. Like, it takes us all working together to get there. So I look forward to staying in this fight with you because you got my support, and look forward to meeting and working with so many of you out there as well.
And I'll challenge you, man, use us as much as possible. Call on us. If you need us to come help knock doors, if you need us to make calls, if you need us to donate, please call on us. So it's important. Coming up in the Charlotte Mecklenburg community myself, was born, humbly with humble beginnings, and I too am self-made, and a $5,000 investment got us here. Yeah. And we're over 100 employees now. I think we're at 17, 18 stores, a distribution company. We're building a cannabis-themed resort. I'm letting that slide out a little bit. But it's absolutely incredible journey. I'm also a realtor. I don't want to do anything else besides be in the cannabis business. Help save me. I don't want to do anything else besides this. But more importantly, North Carolina has the opportunity to not only be in the industry, but to set the bar of what the industry can be. We have a mass influx right now of people coming in from other states where their industry have been shut down, and they're thriving here in North Carolina. Again, conservatively, we're around $3 billion a year in legal hemp sales alone. And we're competing with the black market. I bet you the black market probably trumps us or shadows us probably by threefold, if not more. We need to bring all that forward, make it safe for our communities, get these illicit drugs off the street through better policy, giving people better options and choices as adults of what we put in our bodies and how we heal ourselves. But what it takes is supporting, like my man here, Mr. Jordan Lopez, House Representative Jordan Lopez. We need more like him, y'all. Get behind this man, support him. Make sure your voice is being heard. Show up at the polls in November. Yes, we need you. This is more important than ever. Vote with your pocketbooks every other day. Vote with your major vote when it comes time to vote. Don't give it up. Don't take it for granted. If it wasn't important, they wouldn't try so hard to take it from you by drawing redistricting, by requiring certain requirements to show up and be able to vote. We won't get into all that, but understand if it wasn't so important, they wouldn't try so hard to take it from you. So thank you again for being here. We're going to do a follow-up with this man as he continues probably beyond his 10th year in office. Hopefully he runs for governor next. We're going to work on that. But either way, man, thanks for being here. Thank you all for joining us. Join us each and every week for Let's Be Blunt with letsbeblunt.org. If you want to come on the show, whether you're an op or you're for us, we want to hear from you. I've also challenged some of your colleagues that's traditionally against me to do the same thing, to come sit with us. Hopefully they see that I'm not so mean to representatives that come in and will come and do the same thing. But thank you for your time. Thank you for the person you are. Thank you for helping to put Charlotte on the map and showing the rest of the world who we are. And you're a stellar example of who we are. And thank you for that. So thank you all. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us. Get involved. If you didn't get your question answered today, hit us up. We'll make sure we reach out and get it answered probably on the next episode. Thank you again, sir. Happy Friday the 13th. It's a lucky day for me traditionally. It's also the year of the horse. We got big wins coming ahead of us. We just got to stay true to who you are and never give up.
Damn right.
And that's what it's about. Never give up. You're never too small. Thank you all for joining us. As always, peace, love, and cannabis.